She didn't steal money. She didn't steal jewelry. She stole a future. And she handed it, carefully, deliberately, to her own daughter. While Amara stood at the airport with nothing but a bag she hadn't finished packing and a ticket that no longer had her name on it. Please sit back, relax, as we dive fully into this really remarkable story. Amara had always known that the house had two temperatures. There was the warmth it wore when her father was home, the low hum of the television, the smell of food she recognized, the feeling that the walls remembered who had lived there before. And then there was the other temperature, the one that settled in whenever his car disappeared from the driveway and Vivian stopped pretending. Her father, Daniel, was not a careless man. He simply believed what he chose to believe. That was his flaw, not cruelty, not indifference. Just a particular kind of hope that made him blind to things he didn't want to see. He had married Vivian 4 years after Amara's mother passed, and he had married her with the sincere conviction that a new structure would hold what grief had loosened. Vivian was elegant in the way certain women are elegant, deliberately as a strategy. She wore her warmth in public and stored her coldness for closed rooms. She had a daughter, Priya, 1 year younger than Amara, who had inherited her mother's instincts without yet mastering her patience. Priya wanted what Amara had. It wasn't complicated. It wasn't even hidden. She simply wanted it, and Vivian had spent years quietly deciding how to give it to her. What Amara had at 23 was a visa. Not just any visa. A 5-year skilled worker visa for the United Kingdom, the result of 3 years of deliberate effort, 2 failed applications, 1 successful sponsorship from a design firm in London that had seen her portfolio and called her exceptional. The word had made Amara sit down and press her hands together, because exceptional was not a word she had been allowed to feel inside that house. She had kept the process mostly to herself, told her father briefly, mentioned it to no one else in the household. The acceptance letter had arrived on a Tuesday, and she had folded it into her laptop case, kept it underneath her sketches, and begun quietly preparing to leave a place that had never fully let her in. The visa stamp went into her passport on a Friday. By Sunday it was gone. She noticed it during what should have been a routine check. Flight booked, bags half-assembled, checklist running, passport in hand. She had opened it to the visa page more for comfort than necessity, just to see it, to confirm the reality of what was about to happen. The page was there. The stamp was not damaged, not smudged. The passport had been tampered with. The visa page, carefully, was gone. Amara stood in her bedroom with the gutted passport in her hand and felt the particular silence that comes before understanding. Not panic, not tears. Understanding, the kind that arrives cold and complete, like water filling a space you didn't know was hollow. She didn't go downstairs immediately. She sat on the edge of her bed and let herself think, because thinking was what she trusted when everything else felt slippery. She went through the logical sequence. Who had access to her room? Who knew where she kept the passport? Who had something to gain? The answers were not complicated. When she walked downstairs, Vivian was in the kitchen, pouring coffee, posture easy, expression unbothered, the way a person looks when they've rehearsed calm. "Have you seen my passport?" Amara asked. Vivian glanced up. "Why would I have your passport?" The question was too smooth, too immediate. People who don't know what you're talking about ask what happened. They don't answer with redirection. Amara held her gaze for a long moment. Someone removed a page from it. Vivian set the coffee pot down. "That sounds like a serious problem. You should contact the embassy." Amara nodded slowly. "I will." She went back upstairs. Saturday. Thought. Then she opened her door quietly and listened to the sounds of the house settling. From Priya's room, down the hall, she heard the soft crinkle of paper. Then silence. That night, Amara did not sleep. She lay on her back and stared at the ceiling and made a list in her mind. Not of what had been taken, but of what she still had. Because that was the discipline her mother had left her. Not bitterness. Not reaction. Inventory. She had the sponsorship letter. She had the employer's contact. She had her portfolio, her skills, her record of correspondence with the UK firm. She had documentation. What she no longer had was time, and what she understood clearly, without sentimentality, was that whoever had taken that visa page believed taking it was the same as taking her future. It was not. She called the firm in London the next morning from outside the house, sitting in the car her father had bought her for her 20th birthday, the one possession in that household that was entirely, legally hers. She explained what had happened. The HR manager, a patient woman named Carol, listened without interrupting. "This is recoverable," Carol said. "It will take time. The visa itself is on record. The Home Office has your application. We can file for a replacement, but you'll need a police report and a sworn affidavit about the circumstances." "I know who took it," Amara said. Carol was quiet for a moment. "Do you want to pursue that officially?" Amara looked at the house through the windshield, at the curtain on the second floor that was slightly too still. "Not yet," she said. "But I'm documenting everything." "Good," Carol said. "We'll hold your position. We've invested in you. We're not walking away because of a logistical disruption." Amara exhaled slowly. That word, disruption, was almost generous. But she understood what Carol was offering. A rope, and she took it. She filed the police report that afternoon. She spoke carefully, specifically, without accusation she couldn't prove. Reported the passport as tampered with. Noted the missing page. Noted the date she had last verified its contents. The officer who took her statement was thorough and unhurried. And when she left the station, she felt something that wasn't quite relief but was adjacent to it. She had created a record. The record existed outside the house, outside the family, outside anything Vivian could touch. Her father came home that evening and Vivian had already spoken to him. Amara could tell from the way he called her into the living room. Standing, not sitting, which meant he had been given a posture to hold. "Vivian says you've been accusing her," he said. Amara looked at him, really looked at him, at the man who had carried her to bed when she was small and sick, who had kept a photograph of her mother on his desk for years, who was now standing in his own living room holding someone else's version of events. "I reported a tampered passport," she said. "I didn't accuse anyone by name. You implied. I stated facts." Daniel shifted. "Amara, this is a family." "She took my visa," Amara said. Not loudly, not with trembling, just with precision, the way you say a thing when you've said it to yourself enough times that it no longer needs volume. Daniel's face moved through something. Discomfort, doubt, the flash of a man who almost believed her. Then Vivian appeared at the doorway, expression composed, eyes soft with practiced concern, and the flash disappeared. "I think we all need to calm down," Vivian said. Amara looked at her. "I am calm." She went back upstairs. She did not slam the door. Slamming would have suggested she needed to release something. She didn't. She needed to conserve everything. The replacement process took 4 months. 4 months of living in that house with the knowledge of what had been done, of watching Priya move through her days with a particular new confidence that hadn't been there before, of watching Vivian pretend the entire episode was a misunderstanding that Amara's stubbornness had blown out of proportion. Priya had applied to a university program in the UK. Amara found out through her father, a brief, careful mention, as if he already sensed it was a conversation that required delicacy. A fashion and business program in Manchester. Priya had always liked fashion, had always specifically liked Amara's fashion. Amara's sketches, Amara's eye. She thought about this quietly, not with hatred, with the cold clarity of a person who has understood a plan in reverse, who can see the whole design once they find the center of it. Vivian had not just stolen a document. She had stolen a proof of concept, a visa to a country where she intended to send her own daughter. She had looked at Amara's 5 years of work and decided it was a door worth taking off its hinges. But what Vivian didn't understand, what people who act from entitlement rarely understand, was that the door wasn't the destination. Amara was. The replacement visa arrived on a morning in March when the light was thin and the house was quiet. Amara held the new passport with the new stamp and felt nothing dramatic. Not triumph, not relief, just the clean click of a next step becoming available. She packed in 2 hours. She had been packing in her mind for 4 months, so the physical version was almost ceremonial. She left a letter for her father. 3 paragraphs, handwritten, specific. Not an accusation. A record. She told him what she knew, what she had documented, what she had chosen not to escalate for his sake. She told him she loved him. She told him she was not leaving because she was angry. She was leaving because she had always been going to leave, and now she had the means again. She left the letter on his desk, under the photograph of her mother. She did not leave one for Vivian. She walked out of the house at 6:15 in the morning, rolling a single large suitcase behind her. The car she left in the driveway, she had arranged a ride. She didn't look back at the house. Not because she was performing strength. Because there was nothing there she needed to see. London received her the way cities receive people who arrive with purpose. Indifferently, abundantly, with enough space to become whoever you bring. The firm, a mid-sized design consultancy called Meridian Studio, was located in a converted building near Clerkenwell. All exposed brick and high ceilings, and the specific kind of organized chaos that suggested the people inside were serious about their work. Carol met her at the door on the first day and shook her hand like a woman who kept her word, which she had. Amara's role was junior designer, but the title was provisional. They had told her during her original interview that titles moved quickly for people who earned them. She intended to earn. She rented a room in a shared flat in Peckham. 3 other women, 2 of whom worked in the arts, one of whom was a nurse who kept odd hours and apologized for nothing, which Amara respected immediately. The flat was small, occasionally cold, and felt more like home than anywhere she'd lived in 6 years. She worked. That was the simple, unglamorous truth of the first 2 years. She worked with the focused intensity of someone who understood that excellence was the only argument that couldn't be dismissed. She stayed late without being asked. She brought ideas to meetings that she had refined 3 times before presenting once. She listened more than she spoke, which meant that when she did speak, people oriented toward her. Her mentor at Meridian was a senior designer named Kwame. Ghanaian British, meticulous, allergic to shortcuts. He saw something in her work in the 3rd month and started giving her larger briefs. By month 8, she was leading a secondary project independently. By the end of year 1, she had been formally promoted. She sent her father a message when the promotion came through. Brief, warm. He replied within the hour. He didn't mention Vivian. She didn't ask about her. Year 2 brought a collaboration with a European luxury brand that changed the trajectory of everything. The project came through Meridian's partnership network, a heritage leather goods house based in Milan that wanted a visual identity refresh for its entry into digital retail. They wanted something that felt simultaneously archival and forward. The brief was the kind that frightened some designers and electrified others. Amara was electrified. She worked the concept for 3 weeks before presenting. She brought the partner firm a visual language that pulled from the brand's archival photography, 1960s storefronts, handwritten inventory ledgers, the particular amber of old Italian workshop light, and translated it into a digital grammar that felt inevitable rather than designed. Like it had always existed, waiting to be found. The Milan partner said, in the meeting, that it was the first time they had seen their own identity reflected back to them accurately by an outside team. The project ran for 8 months and won 2 industry awards. Amara's name was in both citations. By year 3, she was no longer a junior anything. Back in the house she had left, things had moved in their own direction. She knew this not from her father, who spoke to her monthly in calls that were affectionate and carefully edited, but from an aunt. Her mother's sister, Auntie Grace, who had never trusted Vivian and who reported developments with the frank efficiency of someone who believed in full information. Priya's UK program had lasted 14 months before she left. Not dismissed, simply, quietly, overwhelmed. The fashion and business curriculum had required a specific combination of technical skill and self-directed discipline that Priya, despite her desire for the outcome, had not developed the process for. She had returned home with credits that didn't transfer cleanly and a confidence that had been significantly reorganized by reality. Vivian, Auntie Grace reported, had not taken this well. There had been a period of redirected blame, the program, the university, the city, the industry. Eventually the blame had nowhere left to redirect, and what remained was a household that had gambled on a stolen opportunity and found that the opportunity was not the thing it had stolen. Because you cannot steal someone's path. You can only delay their arrival. Amara received this information on a Thursday evening in her flat in Peckham, sitting cross-legged on her bed with a cup of tea, and she held it quietly for a while. She didn't feel vindicated in the way people imagine vindication feels. She felt something more complex, a sad, steady understanding that Vivian had believed the visa was the power, when the visa had only ever been a door. The power was always the person walking through it. The unexpected happened in year 5, not as revenge, not as a story with a neat moral delivered loudly at the end. The unexpected happened the way most profound things happen, quietly, from a direction no one was watching. Meridian had been approached by a consortium of investors to develop a Pan-African creative hub, a physical and digital space that would serve as a pipeline between African design talent and international markets. The project was ambitious, underfunded in the way worthy things often are initially, and the consortium needed a creative director who understood both worlds from the inside. They approached Amara. She was 31. She had 5 years of documented international work, 2 award citations, a network that spanned London, Milan, and Lagos, and the particular credibility that comes from having built something real rather than inherited something comfortable. She negotiated her terms carefully. She took the role. The launch event for the hub was held in Lagos, a city she had not been back to in 3 years. The venue was a converted colonial building in Victoria Island, high ceilings and open courtyards, and the specific electric tension of a room full of people who understood they were watching something significant begin. Her father was in the audience. She had called him herself specifically. He had flown in from Abuja and sat in the 3rd row in a suit that still fit him well, and when she walked to the podium he pressed his hands together in a way that looked like prayer. She gave her remarks without notes. She spoke about design as language, about the relationship between cultural memory and commercial future, about what it meant to build something that could hold both. She was not performing. She was simply, finally, fully present in a room that had been shaped by her work. Afterward, during the reception, her father found her. He held both her hands the way he used to when she was small, and he said, "I read your letter." Amara looked at him. "I know. I should have," he started. She shook her head gently. "You're here now." He nodded, eyes bright with the particular emotion of a man who understood the cost of his choices and was not being asked to pay more than he could manage. She didn't need him to say more. She wasn't interested in the satisfaction of making him suffer. She was interested in the truth, and the truth was that she loved her father, even knowing what he had allowed. What she had not known, what Auntie Grace delivered to her 3 days later with the practiced timing of someone who understood when information needed space, was that Vivian had also been at the launch event. Not as a guest. Not with a name badge. She had seen the announcement in the press coverage, had attended in the way certain people attend things they have no claim to, from the back, quietly watching something unfold that their actions had meant to prevent. Amara thought about this for a long time. She thought about a woman who had looked at a 23-year-old's visa and decided it was a resource to reallocate, who had calculated that removing a document could redirect a future, who had handed her daughter a door without understanding that doors don't confer capability, they only reveal it. She thought about Priya, not with contempt, with something closer to pity, which she didn't particularly enjoy feeling, but which was more honest than anger. Priya had been handed something she couldn't use, shaped by a mother who had confused access with ability, and she had paid the price for that confusion in her own way. Amara did not reach out. Not to Vivian. Not to Priya. There was nothing to say that the circumstances hadn't already said more clearly. She walked out of the Lagos event on the last evening, past the courtyard where the catering staff were clearing tables and the city noise was beginning to reassert itself over the curated quiet of the venue. The air was warm and thick with the particular smell of Lagos at night. Exhaust and salt water and something green underneath it all. The smell of a place that has been alive for a long time and intends to continue. She stood at the edge of the courtyard and looked at the lights across Victoria Island. At the buildings that were there when she was a child and the ones that had grown up around them. At the city that had produced her and then been left, and now welcomed her back on her own terms. She thought about the passport, about the Sunday morning she had opened it and found the page gone. about the particular silence that had preceded her understanding, about the 4 months of waiting, of documenting, of refusing to collapse into the shape the situation was trying to press her into. She thought about what it had cost. Not abstractly but concretely, the months of delay, the additional negotiations, the weight of living in a house that had decided she was expendable while pretending to be a home. And then she let it go. Not dramatically, not with a speech or a ceremony. She simply exhaled, and the weight moved, and she was standing in a courtyard in Lagos at 31. The creative director of something she had built from the inside out, with her father's hands still warm in the memory of her own. A woman who tried to steal a visa had delayed her by 4 months. What she had not delayed, what she had not touched, not reached, not come close to, was the person the visa was attached to. And that was the thing about quiet strength. It doesn't require an audience. It doesn't need the thief to admit what they took. It doesn't wait for the apology or the reckoning or the moment of witness justice. It simply keeps moving. And eventually what it builds becomes impossible to ignore. Thanks for watching. If the story moved you, give it a like and share it so others can learn from it too. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories. See you in the next one.